Hi, everybody. Mitch here. Thanks for joining me today. Today, I'm going to talk about credit monitoring services. People ask me about them all the time. Are they worthwhile? Are they a scam? A bunch of questions. So I'll try to answer some of those questions. And I'm going to use LifeLock as an example, not because I get paid by LifeLock, because I don't, but because they're very well known. And they used to be a bit shady. They got sued by the federal government many times, as well as by consumers, and they've cleaned up their act over the last couple of years. So, um, it really boils down to a trade-off between doing it yourself, because you can do almost everything they do, versus having somebody do it for you. So that's the bottom line. So if you want to log on to the credit bureau and look at your credit report, you can do that every month if you want. Um, the credit bureaus offer similar services, although typically it's more new account oriented as opposed to transaction oriented. One of the things that LifeLock does is they bought out a transaction processing company several years ago, so they're seeing credit card transactions in real time. If the service that you're looking at buying doesn't monitor credit card transactions in real time, then it's not very useful, in my opinion. But you can get alerts, and I recommend you do this. I do this from your credit card company. Every time your credit card or your debit card from your bank is used, you get an alert. You can typically set the dollar value. For your banks, you can also get an alert based on checks clearing. So there's a lot of things you can do yourself, but it's a question of, do you want to do it yourself or do you want somebody else to do it? Um, you know, Whoever you pick, and I'll go back to LifeLock again. They offer multiple tiers of services. The low end, which I think is about $4 a month, doesn't give you very much. It's just very basic. And then on the high end, I think it's about $20 a month. Probably overkill. Somewhere in the middle is probably a reasonable sweet spot. But it's going to vary for you. Also, you hear in the LifeLock ads, um, you know, at one point you see different ads, but at one point they say, "Oh, we have $1 million guarantee," which is kind of sort of true. Um, but make sure you understand what that means. It does not mean they're going to write you a check for $1 million. It means, in theory, they'll spend up to $1 million to try to recover your stuff. Not sure how that works. Never had to use it. Never knew anybody who's used it. But do your research. Make sure you understand. The low end, you don't get that. Uh, if you get hacked, then they'll give you back your $3.99. I guess for the whole year. I don't know whether it's just for that month. But make sure you understand what you're getting. Make sure the company is reputable because you have to give them a lot of personal information, and they could be a source of a breach. So, pick a company that is reliable. Check with your homeowner's policy or your renter's policy. A lot of times, the insurance companies offer some coverage, typically not at the transaction level. Um, a lot of times you have credit monitoring services because you were involved in a breach, so you kind of get it for free. So now those are monitoring; those are, maybe the restoration, but you got to understand, you got to look at it, right? So let's say if it was the XYZ credit card and they were breached and they give you credit restoration services, which a lot of them do after a breach. Is that only credit restoration services just for that one credit card? Probably. That's a way they cut down their cost. So make sure you understand there's a lot of variables in the equation, and as long as you understand what you're getting, and that seems like a good value, and the company is reliable, then I think you're in good shape. So until next time, stay safe, and thanks for listening.